can only imagine the trying time this has been to be a major sports commissioner, as they're planning for postponing play, canceling play, and returning to play. Today I get to sit down and chat with one of those commissioners on what those meetings are like and the decision process and the toll it takes on being a commissioner in a pandemic. My guest today is the Deputy Commissioner of the National Basketball League of Canada, Audley Stephenson. And not only is he their commissioner, but he's also a huge fan of the sport of basketball in Canada and around North America. So with that in mind, we're going to talk about the NBA playoffs, which start this week, as it centers around the Toronto Raptors, who are the defending champions, in case you forgot. My chat with the NBL Canada's Deputy Commissioner, Audley Stephenson, here on the Mic'd Up Matt podcast. Let's go! My guest today is the Deputy Commissioner of the National Basketball League of Canada. He's been around and involved with the league for their entire 9 years now. This will be their 10th season coming up. Audley Stephenson, first off, man, thanks for doing this. I hope you and everyone that you care about are staying safe.
Brother Matt, all is well. Thank you for having me roll like this and hang out with you, man. It's kind of nice to be a guest on your podcast. It's kind of cool. I mean, to watch you do your thing like this is nice.
Well, you can call me Brother Matt. On my Facebook profile, I actually have you as my brother. I know we don't look the same, but full disclosure.
I forgot about that.
Yeah.
A lot of people, Matt, will probably don't even realize that, we've got a long history together from a just family standpoint. Your family's my family, mine is yours. I remember when you were born. This isn't just two random people hanging out and chilling. We go back. So yes, you are my brother, Matt.
Well, I wanted to say full disclosure before we begin. The two of us do have history. I call your mom my grandma. You're my brother, and so I hope it's just a friendly chat between friends here. But I know you got a lot of stuff going on, and I wish this conversation, basketball-wise, was under better circumstances, but
sure.
Must have been a tough season for you going into, I think, your third now as the Deputy Commissioner.
Yeah, it was my third season my third year going into as Deputy Commissioner of NBL Canada. We were having a really good year overall. There's never been any question about the competition on the court and the product value and the entertainment that fans are treated to. So that was very, very good. We started to see, we were probably about 3/4 of the season, one way through the season, where we started to see slow separation between teams. And, we were slowly getting ourselves into sort of playoff talk and what that would look like. We had about a month left in the regular season to go. So we were hitting a nice stride, moving along quite nicely. And then all of a sudden, this thing called COVID-19 hit, and that changed the landscape, not only for our league, for everyone across the world globally. And it's crazy in terms of the times that we're living in to know that, something that this magnitude could affect everyone. And all of a sudden, we're in the exact same boat. So for us, we had to do the right thing, and what we believe absolutely was the right thing, which was to, at that time, we suspended our season. And you may remember, Matt, when it was all brand new, there was so much things coming out. No one really knew what was going on, what was factual from not. We were still learning about the virus, still learning about the impact. We're still learning about how it spread. So there's a lot, we didn't know. So at that point, we opted just to suspend the season, suspend the play, wait till we gather some more intel, and then move accordingly from that point. We were frozen for about 3 weeks or so, and then when things started to look like we were in for a longer road, we made the decision to cancel the remainder of the regular season as well as the playoffs. And so I gotta say personally that was tough. It was tough because NBL Canada is something that's near and dear to my heart. As you said off the top, I've been involved from the inaugural season. I couldn't see myself doing anything else or being involved in anything else but that. And so to have something that's so much a part of my fabric, if you will, taken away in the manner that it did, it was tough. And I think I sort of went into like a mini depression almost, because I lost that thing that I love. And I know I heard from a lot of fans who sort of echo similar sentiments, players, just a lot of people connecting with our game and our league. It was tough. And it's funny because if you sort of put things in perspective, all I did was lose basketball. I lost a recreation, a pastime, if you will, for some. There's so much for others that lost so much more. And
exactly.
That really helped put things in perspective. And right now the focus is, you know what, it's I heard an analogy where if it was the big department store, the toy store is closed, but that department's not open. But there's all the other things that are out there, whether it's the home, the hardware, or the kitchen, or whatever. All these things have to function, have to operate. They're the priorities, and so I'm happy, and the league is happy to stand back to let the important work take place, and we'll come in when it's appropriate.
So take me inside some of those meetings. I assume I was going to say the conference room, but I assume it was a Zoom call or a group chat. So,
yeah.
Who would be involved in those? Like, is there government officials? Is there CDC members? I assume it's, owners and people involved with the league. And how do you come to the decision eventually to just flat out cancel the season? Because as you said, like, we're still learning, like 5 months later, there's still so much we don't know and we're learning. But talk to me about how those meetings evolve and some of the conversations that happen in those meetings.
So it was internally first off. So it was all league staff and team owners. We have a board of governors. There's a representative from every member of our team that represent this board. And it's interesting because we're located throughout the Maritimes, and at that time there were some provinces, i.e. New Brunswick, for example, they didn't have a whole lot of cases. PEI, I think they had 3 cases, and they locked down the island, and no one could cross the bridge and come over because they were making sure that it was completely safe. So it was really interesting to get the different perspectives because everyone's based on where you were, you saw things differently. But what you couldn't ignore, and what you couldn't lose sight of the fact of, is that there was larger impacts going on. So even in your area, the spread was minimal. You saw globally what was going on. And you saw how, and the one thing that was clear was how quickly and easily transmission could be made in terms of the virus. And so when you start to think about those sorts of things, you put in the context of our game, where we've got an arena, 2,000 people, all screaming their heads off. It was a no-brainer, if you will, and with all due respect, that we made that decision because of the risk. The risk was just too great, and the way the governments have stepped in, both at the federal and provincial level, to stop things, and we froze our economy. As an example, some of the things that we saw, that really gave you an idea of the magnitude of the situation that we're dealing with. So, all the conversations internally was all about safety for our players, our fans, our staff, our league officials, our referees, the deputy commissioner. It was all about how do we make sure that everyone was safe, and what was the best approach to take, and what was the best thing to do. And so that was kind of what the process looked like. It was tough. It wasn't easy. I will tell you, there was some of the conversations that was, what if we try this, and why don't we look at this? And it was throwing out all sorts of different ideas, but it just became too real that we had to stop and get out of the way, so to speak. And I'm proud of the fact that we did that as a league.
What was I know you mentioned like team representatives, board of governors. Were the players specifically involved in that too? Because this is their livelihood for a lot of them, where they may not get paid. They may not know if they're getting paid. Part of your contract structure is housing and meals are included. What were some of obviously their concerns? I'm assuming that was it, but were they involved in the decision and the discussion process? And what was their reaction when this news came out?
So they weren't. The players weren't directly involved in any of the conversation that we had. It was sort of, again, just at the board level, and the board makes a decision that's best for the best interest of the league overall, and that's what the process was. I do know, and a number of players who I had spoken to, particularly those that were from the U.S., had very serious concerns about getting back home and wondering. And when the announcement of the border being closed, as an example, there were serious concerns about getting home and being with their own family and loved ones. There hasn't been, and I'm in contact with, remain in contact with a number of players, and all have expressed the same thing. Look, we want to be safe, we want to be home. But as time has gone on now, they're getting antsy. They want to get back out there. They want to, they want to compete. And if you're a competitor, any regardless what sport you're in, if you're a high-level competitor, you're itching at the fact that you can't do that. So. The players weren't directly involved, but certainly their best interests were kept in mind, as are other individuals involved with our league.
Yeah, I don't think anybody would debate that the right call was made, especially when you look at like NHL, NBA, like everybody all across the world. You said the economy shut down. I don't think anyone would debate that the right decision was made. We hear about NBA players wanting to be with their families, players that are opting out of returns to be with their families. So I do want to backtrack, though, because as long as I've known you, you've always been a real kind of happy guy, always jokes when I'm around you. To hear you say that you almost
we only know one way, Matt. Come on now. We only know one way.
There you go. But to hear you say that you almost entered a depression state, like sports is so big for me too. And my roommate and I were watching like the 2016 arm wrestling championships one night because we were so starved for sport. But, I don't know. I'm just kind of thrown that word comes from you, a guy who I just see as being so positive all the time.
Yeah, no, it was real, man. It really was. It was tough. It was a tough haul. For a bunch of reasons, and not just for myself personally, the fact that I couldn't be around and be exposed to be a part of the thing that I love, but just knowing the impacts on so many people around, right? And the uncertainty of what was going on, even just look sort of the impacts of mental health as a prisoner without pandemics, right? They're serious and they're real. And so you add this into the mix, that creates, again, this anxiety, the social justice issues. We saw the fallout with the killing of George Floyd and what that did and how that contributed. This is a really trying time for a lot of people, and I think now more than ever before, this is sort of we've got to reach out to one another because we're all in this together and we're all part of this, and we all got to get through it somehow. And it was, so for me, it was a really difficult time, and to know that I was impacted because I was actually caught off guard myself, to be honest with you. I was like, what's happening to me? Why do I feel this way?
Yeah.
What's going on? And I almost had to take a step back and remove myself a bit and go, what's happening? And sort of put things in perspective and reframe and refocus. And thankfully I was able to do that. I've got a great support network, so that's also helpful. But yeah, it's a real thing, man. There's a lot of people that are managing, but there are others who just aren't. And it's tough. It really is.
So I don't want to spend too much time kind of discussing this, but I know there are a lot of people that are dealing with mental health and things like that, but you said you're doing okay now. How do you get past that and go to the next step?
Yeah, I think the thing is, and I can speak from my perspective. I've got no sort of expert sort of opinion, or it's not my field of study, anything of that nature. Right. But I can tell you, we don't go through anything by ourselves, Matt. We're not meant to live in isolation alone. And experience problems by ourselves. You have to have a very, very, very strong network of support to be there, to listen, to help put things in perspective, advice. All of those things are important, and all those things are important to our overall mental health. And so, from my perspective, I think those are key elements in sort of mentally getting healthier. And as well, being able to focus on important things. My family's, Matt, is very important to me. My kids and being involved with them is a key aspect as to who I am. So certainly what the lockdown did, the pandemic did, is give certainly an opportunity to reconnect in ways that maybe I didn't as before, because I was so busy doing all kinds of other stuff. So that was important to me, and that was nice, and it got me a chance to remember how crazy my kids could drive me, which is nice too, right? So those are some of the things I think are important.
Audley Stephenson, the Deputy Commissioner of the National Basketball League of Canada. When you announced the season was canceled completely, it was about a month later that you guys looked towards a late December restart. Normally November for you guys, but coming back in December. Are those plans still on track, and what hurdles do you need to get through to make sure that happens?
Yeah, so we announced that we would return. I think it was sort of red circle the 27th of December. Now, we have done a Boxing Day start in the past as well. In fact, last season we started on Boxing Day. We have sort of mixed the days. We've experimented with different starts for a variety of different reasons. And so December 27th is what we red circled as a time to return. We felt at that time that enough space and we would have there's enough opportunity to have a number of issues be dealt with. What we're seeing now as we're moving through the different phases, that we've seen it collectively all be in phase 3, which a month ago we weren't, right? A month ago that wasn't the case. So we're seeing some progression. We're happy about that. We want to see that continued progression, and as well too. I mean, obviously, the advice and direction of local health officials are going to be important. We haven't seen sort of the green light in mass gatherings, and that's going to be important to us as well. So we're watching, we're paying attention, and we absolutely are following the advice of health officials. Sports is important to a lot of people. About a month ago, I was contacted by the federal government, and we had an extensive conversation about sort of what our league's plans for returns were, what those look like, and wanted to know sort of what support and what can be offered in terms of help. So that was a really productive conversation. So we very much are looking at it as a time to start, and depending on who you listen to, some will say, hey, that's great. Some will say that's far-fetched. But we're focusing on doing the right thing. And so right now we're moving full steam ahead as we talked about, what we planned. And if something changes that, then we'll respond accordingly.
When you speak with federal officials and local governments and stuff, is it a case of they're on board with you, or they want to know what's going on? Obviously, they can green light or red light whatever happens here, but those conversations that you have with them, is it more about, what are you guys trying to do, or is it about, we're going to let this happen, or we're absolutely not?
So we've had a couple conversations, and they've very much been centered around what our plans were and what that looked like for us, and what would be necessary or required. Again, with a pandemic that seems to change as rapidly as this one does. You can make all the plans in the world you want, but ultimately the decision may be made by someone else based on the fact that things have changed, and what you thought yesterday is different than what's happening tomorrow. So we're cautiously optimistic. We're moving forward in baby steps, and so the conversation, but all the conversations we had were more about what do our plans look like, and what do we envision things, or how do we envision things. And so, when asked today, I can answer that and tell you what I think today, but, be prepared to accept that might change tomorrow.
Yeah, just today, just before we got on, actually, the border announced that it's going to be extended another 30 days, the closure.
That's right.
To September 21st. You did say there's a lot of Americans actually playing in your league that I assume are home in the States. But the makeup of your league too, I mean, there's 4 Atlantic Division teams out in the Maritimes, which have done incredibly well. They had actually reported no cases for a length of time. And then 4 in Ontario, which, I mean, this thing just keeps dragging out here and numbers going up and down. does something like that concern you that, maybe 4 teams here might impact the 4 teams that are out in the Maritimes, or vice versa if there's a flare up somewhere else?
Yeah. So, we're one league. And so, what happens in the Maritimes is impactful here in Ontario and vice versa. We're moving forward collectively. If it's not safe for one, it's not safe for anyone. Right. That's just, our approach. And but conversely, if we all can go, we're doing it together. Right. And that's really our approach, and always has been as a league. And that's how the manner in which we operate. The Windsor Essex community, for example. So we have a team in Windsor.
Right.
They've only recently gone into phase 3. And they have their own separate issues with the farmer, the migrant workers, and how that impacts the community. And that matters to us. That impacts us as well, because we can't have 7 of our 8 good to go and one's not. That's not NBL Canada. That's not our league. So we're watching everything. And yeah, absolutely. I think it does. What happens to one definitely has an impact elsewhere.
Hashtag all one, I think, is
that's right. A few years ago, you got that.
There you go. Right. I don't know if you can speak to this or not, but before any of this hit, Cape Breton and St. John were granted a leave for 1 year. Is there a status on them? This was supposed to be the year that they would come back, but obviously, I mean, who knows what's going to happen tomorrow to the next day to whatever. Can you update us on Cape Breton Highlanders and the St. John Riptide?
So we were in active conversations with the Riptide, and a bit more advanced. So we were with the Highlanders. To be perfectly honest, when the pandemic hit, that suspended all conversations, and so I would imagine because the impacts, particularly the financial impacts, that there may be some snag in terms of what was expected for both those franchises. So there's at this point, no official update, but know that we were in conversations, but things have faltered, but as one would expect, what's going on in a larger context.
Of course. Yeah, so one of the junior hockey leagues I work for, we have a team in the States, which there is a league rule that says, if you need a year off for financial or other reasons or whatever, you're by all means take that. And because they're the only team south of the border, they decided to take that this year. And the rule says you're only allowed to get 1. And I assume that, if it was pandemic related for the safety of everyone involved, if they needed a second year, I
would imagine that, they would petition it to their board and ask for some sort of special provision. And I don't think anyone would debate and say, no, you're not worthy, given
right.
What's going on, again, in that larger context. But that's not my league, so I can't tell you for sure. I'm speculating now.
No, yeah. But no, I just thought it was interesting that they, this was supposed to be the year, and then, everything blows up. And so I just wondered for if there was fans out there of those 2 franchises, if there was an update, but understandably nothing as of yet. Deputy Commissioner of the National Basketball League of Canada, Audley Stephenson, my guest today. How difficult is this to have a season canceled? December's your date, and there's another league that's now started in Canada, the Canadian Elite Basketball League. I don't really want to talk business because one of your former owners jumped ship and blah, blah, blah. But, they had their season. They had it on national television. They did it safely from all things that I've read. Can you look at that as encouraging news? Do you look at it as discouraging news? Where are you on watching them play?
I'm really excited. I think what we saw in the CBL is that there are a lot of talented basketball players here in Canada that are homegrown. It says a lot for the sport in terms of the opportunities, and we're a big country, and Canada certainly can manage 2 basketball leagues, particularly those that play in different seasons. Because what that really does, Matt, more than anything else, it gives more playing opportunities for Canadian players. A large a large number of players that participated in the CBL Summer Series played in our league. They've come directly from our league, who will return to our league next season. And so now you have an opportunity for one, to live your dream as a pro athlete, do it from your home country, and then do it for a longer stretch of period of time. That's just, those are opportunities that don't come along often the manner in which they have. And so I think it's very, very encouraging. I'm excited about it. And I think it's great for the game of basketball because now we're elevating the status of the game, the profile of the game, more people watching it, more people interested in it, the more people supporting it. So I'm thrilled and really excited about the opportunities being created out of it.
I like that you mentioned the fact that your schedules don't really conflict with each other. They go, they've announced anyways, May to August, which is kind of what they did this year, obviously pandemic related. You're November, December through to April. It's basically a full year of basketball, a couple months off in the country. And we look at what the national basketball team has done, Team Canada. I mean, there's some names that are starting to roll through there. Qualification very close to the world championships, and
Yep.
I mean it's got to go a long way. I know before you're the NBL commissioner, you're a fan of basketball, you're a fan of
Absolutely.
Canadian basketball, and you know I just want to echo those thoughts that you already gave.
Matt, it's just really exciting. It really, really is. And you know, when you watch the opportunity for years, Canada was as a country was thought as an afterthought in terms of on the competitive level of basketball. But you're seeing the rise. You're seeing, you know, the Canadians making an impact in the NBA as an example. And you're watching the growth of the game. We're getting better, more competitive. We're getting stronger. We're not taken for granted. And I really believe that the grassroots approach in terms of growing the game of basketball is an important one because you plant those seeds in these young kids at an early age, aim to envision what it looks like to play professional basketball in my home country. And you start that young and they grow up with that vision. You know, anything is possible. You know, you hear a number of NBA players, how thankful they are to Vince Carter. Right? They said they looked up to Vince Carter when he played here, and he helps plant the seed for them to now go off, and the Corey Josephs and the Tristan Thompsons of the world are now, you know, making an impact at the NBA level. So I think in a similar fashion approach, our league, which has always been very grassroots, you know, our approach has been right in the community. You know, all of our franchises, all of our teams have a strong connection to the communities in which they play, and it's really important for us to not only just be there playing basketball, be a part of the communities. And I think all of our teams do a tremendous job doing so. And so we talk about growing the game and talk about the organic grassroots approach. Those are sort of the aspects and elements we're touching on.
So getting back to the NBL now, when you do return, it will be your 10th anniversary of the league. Is there any plans to celebrate that? And what are you guys looking forward to in year number 10?
Yeah, no, there's lots of things being talked about. You know, again, we're being cautiously optimistic as to how deep we're going into it, but there's just a lot of cool things that are on the table right now, and we'll certainly, as time goes on, we'll rule them out and get our fans an opportunity to get excited. But yeah, we're thrilled about doing this 10 years in the making. You know, you think, you know, in the history of our league, you know, we've had so much ups and downs and really great highs, and sure, we've had our fair share of lows, but we've learned from that, and we've gotten better from that. We've grown and matured as a league, and you know, we did this at a time when there wasn't really a blueprint. There was nothing out there that had done or that was doing what we were doing, and so, you know, through that process, you know, you're gonna learn some lessons the hard way, and so we had to do that, and so be able to look back at where we've come from and to where we are now. And then we also talk about the evolution of the Canadian players and the skill level of our Canadians 10 years ago to where they are now. It's night and day. So there's lots and lots and lots to be excited about.
When you guys shut down, the London Lightning We're leading 15-8 in Ontario. Really tight, though, in terms of where that used to be, including Sudbury, who was only a couple games back, one of only 2 teams not to make the championship. Moncton's starting to run away with the Atlantic Division, though. I already see you smiling now that we're talking some actual play. But to me, as an outsider who doesn't admittedly watch a lot of basketball, this just looks like, I have seen some of your games, but this looks like a very evenly matched league in terms of competition on the floor, despite the fact that you look at, records, and London's won a whole bunch of titles and Halifax has been in the running and blah, blah, blah. Your take on the parity that's in your league right now across the 2 divisions?
Yeah, I actively and regularly challenge anyone that, coming through an NBL game and not tell me you had a thrilling time, because that's really what it comes down to. It's just an exciting product. We're excited about basketball and being able to entertain fans in the manner that we have. And you can walk into a game, forget what their 2 teams' records are, ignore that, throw it out the window, and watch the game. And you wouldn't know which team was on a 5 or 6 game winning streak and which was on a 5 game losing streak. It's just that's the kind of level of competition we're talking about. And the parity has been fantastic. Yes, in the early days of our league, you had some teams that were really running away with things and owning the yard, so to speak, right? And as time had gone on, and as the game developed and our league developed, you saw that gap really starting to shrink. So, it's really a fun league, entertaining and absolutely competitive.
In this day, you touched a little bit on, the Black Lives Matter movement, social injustice, gender equality has been part of that for the last couple of years. I look at your league and you're the guy that's steering the ship, a guy who doesn't look anything like me except for the haircut. And your executive of the year for the second time in your league history is a female, Melissa Melnichuk out of KW. Not just a league that's putting statements out there and speaking on these issues, but to me, when I see stuff like that, it looks like you're actually committed to, walking the walk, and, a Black commissioner, a female leaders in your league. Just if you could speak to those points as well.
Yeah, I'm really proud of NBL Canada from that standpoint, and why there's a lot of pride for me is that it wasn't sort of consciously said, we're going to do this and we're going to point this. It wasn't that at all. It was just, it just organically and naturally happened. I am the second Black commissioner in the league history. We've had, I want to think, as you mentioned, Melissa was the executive of the year, the second female to do that in our league history. We've actually had 3 in our 10 years, the 9 years of operation. We've had 3 females that have run teams. Number of Black head coaches, minorities from top to bottom, through different organizations. Having said all of that, it doesn't stop there, right, Matt? It doesn't just stop. It's an ongoing, and I'm sure even within our league, there's more that can be done. It's great to pat ourselves on the back for the things that we've done, but it doesn't mean that we've done our part, we've done our job. Great, let's move on. What else can we do? How else can we unblur those lines, so to speak, and shorten that gap and create opportunities for others that may not necessarily get them. That's I think those are real conversations that we're starting to see to happen right across North America, Canada, in terms of what can we do, and our league is no different. we have to, in fact, I think, the onus and the expectation is that, leagues like ours are the leaders and on the forefront of these sort of innovative ways of changing and bringing about change. So for us, it's great what we've done, but it doesn't stop. It just kind of keeps going. And again, I'm just happy to be a part of it. I'm happy that certainly the league saw value in having me in this role, and I'll continue to do the job to the best of my ability.
So again, the league is based in Canada. A number of American players. We recognize that this isn't just an American issue. There are things and conversations to be had here north of the border. The NBA has taken their platform and just ran miles and miles with it. I've been thrilled, even as someone who's not black, with the job they've done, even allowing their players to put messages on their jersey, messages on the court, but amongst the other things that they're doing. Have you had that conversation yet with something the NBL might do when play returns?
Yeah, we've talked about a couple things that have come up, and again, we're still quite early, but yeah, there's some things that we've seen that we are interested in also making a statement, and also being mindful that our players who are also many are players who are black are impacted or affected by this, and they will have feelings and thoughts and may want to also participate in some fashion or manner. So there are some things that we absolutely talking about. We think when you look at what the NBA has done, it's phenomenal in terms of their players having a voice and using their platform, and I think that's the right way to go. And really, more importantly, what that does, Matt, is it keeps the conversation going.
Absolutely. Final question I have for you with regards to the NBL, and I missed it before. When you return to play, I know we've already talked. Safety is the absolute number one thing for staff, players, fans, if there are fans. Have you talked about, if it's not good to go, something like a bubble or a hub, or even doing something without fans, or are you committed to one thing or another here?
I think for us, the idea of not having fans is not overly desirable. And it certainly has come up in conversation around the table, and not a lot of people are excited about that kind of a model. Certainly, sort of the bubble sort of concept is an intriguing one, particularly when you sort of look at some areas that have low COVID cases. Hey, have all of our entire league go, and sort of that hub and play out of there. So there are a couple of things that are being talked about. We're not getting too deep into the conversation, only because we still want to make sure we have all the information and gather enough before we sort of commit to one or the other. But yeah, there's certainly those things that you've mentioned have been discussed or touched on in some form or fashion.
Would you consider a hub or bubble outside of a market that you already play in? I know there's Ontario and the Atlantic, as we talked about. I'm sure you could do something in the Atlantic, but if for whatever reason it doesn't happen and you had to shift to Alberta, say, is that something you may consider?
I don't know if going that far west would be on our radar. We probably want to stay closer to home, but I mean that's an intriguing thought. You sort of think about, okay, well, if you do something like that, it gives you exposure, but there really isn't exposure because fans can't check you out, right? So
Exactly.
You're still limited, right? So, I mean, in theory, I don't know if it matters where the bubble really is, because at the end of the day, it's just, these teams and no one else involved and no one else seeing the product, so to speak. So, but there hasn't been any real conversation about going elsewhere. I think we sort of feel confident that there are enough options within our league that we should be able to comfortably find something that makes sense and works for us.
Once again, Audley Stephenson, the NBL of Canada's deputy commissioner here. And like we said, right off the top, a fan of basketball. The NBA playoffs start. Are you okay if we talk a little NBA here to close things out? All right. despite the Raptors being the defending champions, there's still a lot of people that aren't even on the radar, which may be a good thing if you're in Vegas. But if you're a fan of the team, like, I'm kind of upset here. Why are they continuously getting shunned? And does it go beyond Kawhi?
Well, if you look historically, what's happened is what we've always seen. Like, this is kind of what Raps fans are used to, and quite frankly, I don't think anyone cares anymore. The Raptors certainly don't. Hey, look, if you think about it, they were the underdogs last year, and they walked away with the championship. Now, they came into this season, they weren't given much regard. You guys have lost Kawhi, it's over. And they've had statistically a better year without Kawhi. They had a lot of games lost to injury. Men, you look at the whole starting lineup, tons of game players are missing, and they had a better record. Second seed in the Eastern Conference. Playing inspired basketball. Defensively is a nightmare. The team concept, like, if you really follow over the game, if you pay attention to the team concept, both offensively and defensively at both ends of the floor, it's phenomenal. The ball moves offensively. It's always an extra pass. The right shot is being made. Guys recognize their teammates' strengths, gets the guys in the right spots where they should shoot the ball from, and I think it's phenomenal to think going into those 8 games of the bubble for them to play as well as they did and have been. It's just incredible because the one question coming out of the pandemic or coming as a result of the pandemic is what are guys going to look like? How rusty are they going to be? That team on-court camaraderie, that chemistry, all that stuff that we put to the test. And I don't know about anyone else, but to me, like, the Raptors haven't missed a beat. And they look like they're playoff ready and aiming, raring to go. And so, if the North America, the U.S. media doesn't want to give them any attention, that's fine. We'll convert them one at a time. And that's okay with us.
You talk about team mentality, and I watched that Philadelphia game last night. I was a little behind, but the starters are out of the game, and you've got Stanley Johnson starts to go off, and Juan Hernandez starts to go off. The bench was up cheering and just going absolutely nuts. And then the camera panned over, and Joel Embiid was on the sideline when his bench guys started putting buckets down, and just, I'm here watching a game. To me, that image just spoke massive volumes about this Raptors team and their chemistry. I have my own thoughts on Embiid and his teammates and how that team operates, but focusing Raptors here, that was just a huge image for me watching that game the other night.
Yeah, it was fun, wasn't it? I enjoyed it as well. Watching those guys battle back the way they did. Look, sure, it was a meaningless game from a standing standpoint. It did nothing to advance the Raptors, but it certainly gave, quality playing time to players like, Matt Thomas and Hernandez and Johnson, the guys that you mentioned. Chris Boucher, he's been maximizing the time on the court. So I think it's really
another Canadian. I'll jump in. Another Canadian.
Yeah, absolutely, a Montreal guy. So it's phenomenal to see, and the team they truly are a team, Matt. They are together as one, and they're showing it. And so when we talk about the chemistry, I don't think there's much time spent on whether chemistry is still there or not. It absolutely is, and they're ready to defend against they're defending champs and they're ready to repeat as NBA champions.
You did say it's a nothing game, and I would argue that some of those guys that are getting in those moments are the guys who are going to be fighting for maybe that last bench spot once the playoffs start in just next week. How big of a factor is that when you think of a Matt Thomas or a Stanley Johnson who may just sneak in there to grab that, ninth, maybe 10th spot?
Absolutely. Listen, you can say what you want, but my philosophy has always been that you get better, you improve by playing. Like, you can do all the drills and all the practices you want, but until you get in between those lines and get right in the fire, I mean, that's where you develop. And so when you get those sorts of opportunities for the players that you mentioned, it's phenomenal. When you're, the number one rule as a bench player is stay ready. You always got to be ready. And so when you get an opportunity to see some minutes, you maximize that. And then when it's time to go back to the bench, you go back to the bench. And while you're there, you stay ready again. And you wait for your number to be called, because you never know when you'll be tapped on the shoulder and asked to jump in and fill a spot or a gap or whatever. So I think it's phenomenal those guys had an opportunity to do that. I think it's great for the team overall, and it does wonders again for the camaraderie and the whole chemistry. So that's great stuff.
And basketball is one of those, like, that can happen any second, because when you think of hockey, top three lines, that fourth line's not playing a lot. If a guy on the second line gets injured, it's not a fourth line guy coming in, it's the third line guy, or the first line guy is going to double shift, stuff like that. But you've got, you do have injuries, unfortunately. Guy gets in foul trouble, someone just might not have it that night, and you got to go find something. So
that's right. And it's nice to have that on your bench.
Absolutely. to have that option to go to. And the number of times I've seen NBA coaches and that they don't have anything and the bench doesn't have anything, and next thing you're down by 40, and it's just not a fun time. They're
a long night, buddy.
They're getting teed up just so they can have an early night. There it is. The Raptors' first opponent is the Brooklyn Nets. I don't think anyone expects this to be much of a challenge for them. Maybe a different story if Kyrie was in there, if Kevin Durant was in there, but
right.
This one should be easy. But how do you see the playoffs setting up for the Raptors here?
Well, yeah, I mean, they've done well overall against them, and it's just a matter of sticking with your game plan and doing what you've done up until this point as a team. I am cautious about. I'm just naturally cautious about being overly confident at any opponent. This is the NBA, but yeah, I mean, go out there and handle your business, and things should turn out the way they're supposed to. And then later rounds, when you see teams like the Bostons and the Milwaukee Bucks, and the ones that are serious contenders, you certainly you want to gear down and be ready for them. But I think the game plan for the Raptors is go in, handle your business as quickly as possible to maximize any opportunities for any rest to get ready for later rounds.
Is there another playoff series on the docket? We'll go east or west here that is much must-watch TV for you. Is there one that stands out?
It's interesting. When you look over in the West and sort of what the Lakers have done, they've been a top team throughout.
They better be.
You expect them to be. But the head-on collision that we're going to see with the two LA teams, the Clippers and the Lakers, I think that's got to be the one that's getting everyone excited. Just because of where they're the two best teams in the West. There's no question about that. And they're all. It's really interesting when you get into the backstory of some of these players. They're all playing for something, right? LeBron's at the point where he's thinking about his legacy. Kawhi is showing, look, I can do this in my home country, hometown as well. I'm an LA guy, and I can do it here. I won championships in San Antonio and Toronto. Now I want to do it in LA. And when you go down the line, each player's got their own story. And so the storylines and the LA series, when it comes, that'll be a good one as well too.
It's funny to me because like LeBron James, when Kobe was with us, it was LeBron James, Kobe, MJ, who's the best ever. And I look at Kawhi, and I mean, he's kind of hidden here. Not that I'm necessarily putting him in MJ territory, but the way he plays the game two ways, and the best in the league maybe right now with, Giannis gets the attention, and Harden was getting the attention for a while, and LeBron, and Kawhi never seems to end up in that conversation right now. But you watch him play the game, and, we saw it last year. He could take over and just kind of disappears in the conversation.
Yeah, he does. But you know what? And I think, much like the Raptors, I think he's okay with that too. Forget about me, ignore me, pretend I'm not here. I'll be just fine. And, he's an all business guy. He's always been. And I think the fact that, he's not getting, he's not getting the praise, if you will, he's okay with that. And he's all about business. Let's go to work and handle things. And that's all that matters.
I might have jumped the gun a little bit with the MJ Kobe comparison, but
If you notice, I let it slide. I did
Yeah,
let that
yeah. Well, I did see you chuckle a little bit. But I mean, when you look at the league today, it's LeBron, Giannis, James Harden. That's where I was going with that. And I think Kawhi's right in there, that conversation, and just never seems to get his due respect. But oh boy, how juicy would a Clippers Raptors final be, my man?
Well, I mean, that's another fun one, right? Like, I mean, you think of all sort of the storylines. Your former team, you were the guy. You hit that big shot against Philly. All that sort of thing. It's a great storyline. I don't know. I'm kind of I'm kind of thinking that the finals if I were to anticipate, I see a Raptors Lakers is kind of what I see. And I want to, my hometown. You got to support your hometown Lakers. I know you're gonna ask me. Yeah, I know that was the next question. Who's taking it, right? You got to support the hometown Raps. Although I have a huge amount of respect for LeBron and what he does on the court and off the court as a humanitarian as well. But yeah, you got to back your hometown.
The times that I've watched the Lakers, granted they've only played the Raptors a couple of times, but it seems like LeBron has to go off or Antonio Davis has to go off. And
Anthony Davis.
Yeah, sorry, excuse me.
The other guy.
I knew it was going to happen too. Davis or LeBron has to go off. But for the Raptors, I mean, it could be so many of their guys on the right. We saw like Serge Ibaka last year, Fred VanVleet take over with, Kyle, obviously. Like, it could go any number of ways with the Raptors.
And that's what you really love about the team, that there are options. They've got firepower. They've got weapons. But they're just – but I really believe that is a byproduct of an unselfish team, right? So when you're unselfish and you want to share the ball and, hey, Fred's got it tonight, I'm going to keep feeding Fred. Like, I'm going to make sure that's beautiful to watch. And, it's not about numbers for guys. It's about a collective team win. The individual accolades and numbers, all that stuff, all that pub, that will come when it comes. But right now it's about business. We are a team. Who's going to put us in the best position to win and to be successful, and that's what it is, and we go with it.
And I mean, the job that Nick Nurse has done, I'm sure Nick Nurse has a lot to do with that, getting guys to buy in. And, you talked about the injuries before, the number of different lineup configurations they had last year, the lineups they had to put together this year. And I mean, he's the guy, and it's one vote shy of a 3-way tie for Coach of the Year. I think he's another guy who flies under the radar, but totally okay with it.
Yeah, he is. I that being one vote shy, I was a little disappointed because I don't think he got enough credit. I mean, I don't know how many teams in the league would sustain losing their superstar as the Raptors did and come back playing even better. I just don't
Right.
know. Right? I don't know who can do that. And a lot of that credit goes to Nick Nurse and his coaching staff for what they've been able to do.
And I mean, he says there's extra stuff they've got hiding here. What do you expect from their defense?
I'm actually waiting in anticipation because I'm dying to see what he's got in mind. When I heard that, I'm like, really? I can't wait. Listen to that. Let's go. So we'll see. Look, as much as I love the game, I'm not next to those guys. So who knows? I'm waiting like everyone else.
It's kind of amazing to me, like when you think back on the history of this team, the Rudy Gay trade really got things turned around for the franchise. Then the DeMar trade and Dwayne Casey wins Coach of the Year, gets fired, moves on. Mike Budenholzer was supposed to be the guy that was going to come in and replace him. And I don't know if you remember back there, everybody said, no, it's absolutely Mike Budenholzer. He signs with Milwaukee. And they're like, yeah, well, why wouldn't he? He gets to coach Giannis Antetokounmpo. And Nick Nurse becomes a guy and wins the championship, beats them in the conference final. And, I just love that storyline to me.
It's a great storyline.
He was,
it's great.
Yeah.
No, a great storyline. I don't think there's enough credit given to Masai Ujiri in terms of what he's done with this team, the family culture that he's created. the environment, the championship environment that's also been created. It's a great story, absolutely. And it's also giving credit for the tough decisions that he's had to make, right? You mentioned Dwayne Casey, DeMar DeRozan. Those are tough decisions. And as tough as it was, as difficult as it was to see those individuals go, you can't argue with the fruits. And what we're talking about is championship.
There were people in this city that were in love with Jonas Valanciunas. And even after you trade away DeMar DeRozan and you break up, the best bromance in the NBA with him and Kyle, I remember that December ESPN interview. I do my job, he does his, and
right.
That scared me.
Yeah, that was a lot of bad blood. But again, as pros come out and do what they're supposed to do, and we saw that in Kyle, and again, you can't argue with a championship.
Well, a lot of gutsy calls for Masai for sure. I hope he sticks around, man. There's been rumors out there too that he might leave.
They're just rumors. He's not going nowhere.
Okay, good. Heard it here first. Confirmed from the NBL commissioner, Audley Stephenson. Man, we covered a lot here. It was great to see your face. That smile is infectious in this time of a pandemic, my friend. I missed it.
Man, I appreciate you a whole lot. Thank you. It's great to see you doing this. Like a little brother in return to me in terms of just watching you do your thing. I watch you grow up, and it's fantastic. And keep going, man. You're doing a great job.
Well, I appreciate you, man. All the best on the 10th season of the NBL. Whenever that happens, as safe as it could possibly be. And please wish your daughter a happy 16th birthday for me. I'm sorry I'm late.
Will do. She will appreciate you, man. Thanks.
All right, good. I appreciate her too. That was NBL Canada Deputy Commissioner Audley Stephenson here on the Mic'd Up Matt podcast.